Now for a quick disclaimer. Nothing you see or hear on the flight deck is investment advice. Nothing said today is intended as investment advice. Those participating in today's discussion may have bought, held, and/or sold the stocks discussed today prior to today's discussion and/or may do so afterwards. Remember, you are responsible for your own investment decisions, and if in doubt, you should seek advice from an independent financial advisor. Stocks can be high risk, and you may lose the entire amount you have invested. Please now sit back and enjoy the flight.
A natural gas pipeline that the Trump administration has promised. You actually retweeted a statement by Donald Trump on this. What's your expectation? What has he told you?
Well, we have all the permits for this pipeline. It's a massive pipeline project where I think we're battling our last court case. So this pipeline project is really coming together with buyers and sellers of gas. Mm-hmm. The president's been very consistent. President Trump's been very consistent. And he supports this gas line concept. What people don't realize is Alaska pioneered LNG export for North America in the late 1960s, 68, 69. We sent gas to Japan, LNG, out of Nikiski, Alaska, which is south of Anchorage. Yeah. That occurred for 50 years until our gas got depleted in the Cook Inlet. But we're talking about North Slope gas, which is 100 trillion cubic feet to 200 trillion cubic feet of gas, tremendous amounts of gas. But we're very close to consummating this gas pipeline, and pretty excited about it.
The governor's been doing a really good job of trying to focus on this, get these companies up there, but it's going to help us with regard to the financing and building of this pipeline.
Excellent. Let me ask you, in terms of the financing and building, the role that the Japanese, that the South Koreans and others can play.
Yeah. Well, look, they can play a really important role. I will tell you that this idea of in Alaska, we now have this idea of what's called a phased approach, where the state with base users, and that includes the military, data centers, and our own needs, will work to build and finance the first phase of this, which is the pipeline. So, as I mentioned, we already have enormous supplies of gas on the North Slope that are coming out every day. We re-inject them. And the ability then to finance that through our own base demand that would include these data centers, finance the pipeline, is really important. But having long-term contracts from Japan, from Korea, from Taiwan, as you know, can help finance it, because then we can bring in big investors. I just had a phone call, and they've been quite interested for some time, with Larry Fink of BlackRock. They, have a lot of money to invest. They're long-term investors on energy infrastructure projects. This is one that they see as really, really promising, particularly if we can get longer-term contracts with the Japanese and Koreans. And so that all goes into the package of financing. And it's a big project. The time has come. We're going to have great support from President Trump and his team. And the other strategic elements of this, not just the counter to the Belt and Road, but winning the AI race with China. Those are all the stakes, and that's why it's so important.
Hi everybody, Flight Deck here, just wanting to do a little brief update. It's Thursday the 5th of December, and I've just got Sporozine joining me today.
Hi Flight.
Well, today we had a statement put out by the AGDC, the Alaska Gasline Development Corporation, who are the entity who own the Alaska LNG project on behalf of the state. And they're working towards developing a two-phase solution. First phase is a pipeline from the North Slope, bringing gas down to the interior for in-state usage. And the second part will be the full LNG exports project. The Alaska Industrial Development and Export Authority, and they brought out a resolution today supporting the development of Alaska LNG Phase 1, the in-state pipeline portion of Alaska LNG, designed to bring North Slope natural gas to interior and south central Alaska. So that's kind of exciting news. We wondered whether it'd be part of the legislative process next year, which is basically providing a credit note, I believe. Is that right, Sporozine?
That's exactly
credit
right.
Credit note for $50 million? Yeah. What's your read? What's your take on it?
Flight, I would say that we've had a significant amount of momentum since we did the last roundtable. So there's quite a few things that I think are out in the public domain since even since the last week or so. We had Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy do a couple of interviews. He did a short interview on CNN, and then he did a longer sort of podcast interview on Bloomberg, which was, very interesting. Quite a lot of that interview was made reference to the pipeline. And one of the quotes there that stuck out for me, he said that we're very close to having the pipeline consummated. So I think, that was really positive. And in the last couple of days, we've also had Dan Sullivan, who's been participating in the Hudson Institute conference. So he did a fireside chat focusing specifically on how Alaska can really support, how Alaska's strategic in Indo-Pacific relationships, and again made some specific references to the LNG project there. We also had a WoodMac report released yesterday, another WoodMac report. This WoodMac report was really talking about how additional US LNG supply that's not yet been through FID is required in order to reduce Asian coal usage in power generation. So, certainly a positive CO2 impact there. And all that was really before the announcement that came through overnight that we just really talked about. So I think just a massive amount of momentum from my point of view, even after Trump came out following his election victory, which from a Pantheon point of view, I think is really, really positive. So I guess we don't know how far along AIDEA is relative to signing that letter of credit. Let's hope they're through the red line process, but it certainly feels like we're pretty close to moving to FEED.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think there has been a significant ramp up really in the rhetoric coming out from the various sources. As you say, Senator Dan Sullivan, he seems very active, just engaged with all stakeholders across the Indo-Pacific region, obviously promoting the project. I mean, it was his number 2 kind of focus in that presentation. I think we'll put a link below to that video. I thought it was particularly interesting from a military strategy point of view and providing security for the Asian allies. But yeah, with a particular focus on literally the gas line, and which is quite astonishing, really, isn't it, that this tiny company listed on AIM in London is at the centre of a global infrastructure project that save a ridiculous amount of carbon emissions for the planet. It's at the centre of an energy security debate, and now a furthering of sort of global relations between the US and Asia Pacific. These sort of things don't come along, do they? I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Well, I mean, I certainly didn't expect this to be the case when we first merged with Great Bear Petroleum. So I would say the case for Pantheon's just moved on significantly over the course of the last few years. And I would say beyond my expectations, significantly beyond my expectations for sure, Flight.
Yeah, okay. So let's just focus in on this announcement. So Pantheon then put out an RNS this morning, and I'll just go through the key points for Pantheon. So as we know, the Gasline project had reached a stage where it needed $50 million of investment so that the pipeline contractor working with the AGDC could complete all the front-end engineering design works. And that's really just the bulk of that work's already been done in terms of engineering. It's now just bringing that cost analysis up to date, looking at the literal costs of procurement and updating that schedule. And so there's $50 million worth of work, or up to $50 million worth of work. And the AGDC were looking to put that out to the private sector. And it looks like this is, to me, I read this as an interim step whereby the Alaska Industrial Development Export Authority has stepped in to provide a credit note to backstop that chunk of work. That's how I'm reading this. And then Pantheon have put out in their RNS this morning, well, what does that mean for us? And the points, I'll just read them out. The AGDC is the owner of the Alaska LNG project, and the resolution is a key step to securing private investment in the project and moving to a final investment decision. Pantheon and the AGDC signed a gas sales precedent agreement in June 2024, the GSPA, which includes, amongst other conditions, a requirement for the Alaska LNG project to reach final investment decision. And people can see that RNS dated the 5th of June 2024. And this is the point. The value of a take-or-pay contract under the gas sales agreement, based on the terms of that agreement, if finalised, could potentially allow Pantheon to secure funds required to cover the capital costs from the point of harpoon financial investment decision through to cash flow self-sufficiency. So in effect, it removes the funding requirement, the current funding need. So this is a pretty big deal, right?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the capital investment requirements of some of the projects within the Alaska North Slope, obviously pick a horseshoe, the Willow development. I mean, you're really talking about a capex in the billions for some of those projects.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I think those that followed the presentation that David Hobbs made at the Small Cap Conference in the US yesterday heard that our pre-FID capex requirements are very modest. But of course, if we then are able to borrow money on the strength of a GSA being signed for the gas project, then effectively that's a non-dilutive to equity form of financing, which I think from a shareholder point of view is really very exciting indeed. And coupled that with some pretty modest pre-FID capex needs, then you'd like to think that we're, facing minimal dilution from this point forward.
Okay, I mean, I think that's all. I just wanted to have this quick call and just to highlight what's happened. People can go and check out the RNSs for themselves. I'll just finish by saying, just quoting David Hobbs, the executive chairman of Pantheon, "We continue to work closely with AGDC and the key decision makers in the state of Alaska to ensure that Alaskans get the maximum benefit from gas resources on the North Slope and to secure an infrastructure project essential to the long-term energy security of the state and with positive impacts on US national security." Just unbelievable, Jeff, right? It's just, whoever's following this needs to go back, do some due diligence. Obviously, I'm going to give a shout out to people on the Discord server who run and search for various aspects of this story. We're always the first to kind of break articles or news surrounding this. And yeah, get on the investment server, become part of the community, and we'll put the links to everything in the show notes below. All right, cheers, mate. Thanks.
Cheers, Flight.
Thank you from all the crew here at the Flight Deck, and hope to see you soon over at Flight's investment server, sharing industry insights for the good of all.